tuning into Roll Call. The movie you selected is Ali, starring Will Smith.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roll Call. Bing, 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 bing. TKO, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Because, let's face it, we're all just chasing the power trip that you felt when you got to knock out your sister and pick out a movie for the weekend.
Did you steal my line? I was going to say, I would float like a little... Instead of hustling my little worker ant ass, I would float my little butterfly ass over to a blockbuster and maybe knock out my sister, who would pick them. Yeah, you know the rest. Knock her out. Who gets to pick the movie?
All right. First up in the corner, I am Bria, and Real is in fact a motherfucker. Word to Bundini, Muhammad Ali's right-hand man.
And in the next corner, we have heavyweight champion Simone. And there ain't nothing wrong with being cool.
Nothing wrong, baby. The birth is slick. And in today's episode, we'll chat about Will Smith and the 2001 biographical sports drama, Ali. So, let's take a trip back to December 2001.
All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kind of switch things up a little bit today. I am going to talk about movies that were released in tandem with Ali in December, because as we know, in 2001, our world was kind of flipped upside down with 9/11 in September, and I know we kind of talked about it last season in Jennifer Lopez's 2001 movie. And so what I kind of wanted to do was just talk about movies that were released. Will Smith and Muhammad Ali actually did a promo when this movie was released, talking about Islam and Muslims, and kind of prompting folks who may be hesitant on seeing the film after the 9/11 events. But then I kind of wanted also to give a little bit of a bio on Muhammad Ali, because although this movie is a biographical film, it covers only about 10 years of Muhammad's life. And so I just kind of wanted to do something a little bit different today, if that's all right.
This does feel like the Selena of the season.
Without the music, yeah.
Well, very important person, very historical person, biography, standout, serious role for this actor. And just for me, at least, you know, a feeling of like, we gotta get this right, just like Will felt. So can't fuck up the Ali episode.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, Ali was a Christmas release. It was a December, it was December 10th, 2001. And in that month, we also get Ocean's 11, a classic, which I feel like we talk about a lot on this show. And Bria, I think one of these days you and I just need to sit down and watch it.
I've watched it. You mean together?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have an Ocean's weekend.
Okay, sounds good. We also have Not Another Teen Movie, which was also released. Vanilla Sky, starring Tom Cruise.
And Penelope Cruz. That's when they...
A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe, was also released.
Which was up against Ali for Best Supporting Actor.
Sure was. Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, the first of the trilogy. Joe Somebody, starring Tim the Toolman Taylor, Tim Allen. How High was on December 21st.
Boo foo bitches. Buy us, fuck you. Buy our merch on Redbubble.
We have The Majestic, starring Jim Carrey. Which I think it was like the drive-in movie theater one.
It was a theater. That's all I know.
Yeah.
It seemed boring. I don't know.
Yeah, seems more like a fever dream of a movie than an actual movie. There's
That's
also
something for the parents.
totally. We have The Body starring Antonio Banderas, Kate and Leopold with Meg Ryan and Hugh Jackman. And that's pretty much it in terms of like, I don't know, big blockbuster stuff. It's Christmas. There's going to be a lot of like Christmas movies. Whoopi Goldberg makes a movie called Call Me Claus. Anyways, moving over. Those were kind of the big releases of December. But this movie in particular, as we mentioned, it's a biographical sports drama that covers about a 10-year span in Muhammad Ali's life. But for those who don't know, here's a little Wikipedia history for you. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., and in 1942, he was an American professional boxer and activist. He was nicknamed The Greatest, which most likely is where we are going to get the nickname GOAT, the greatest of all time. And he's widely regarded as one of the most significant and celebrated sports figures of the 20th century, and is frequently ranked as the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. By 1999, he was named Sportsman of the Century by Sports Illustrated and Sports Personality of the Century by BBC. Now, there are a lot of complicated layers to Muhammad Ali's life. He was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. He began training as an amateur boxer by the age of 12. And at 18, he won a gold medal in the light heavyweight division in the 1960s Summer Olympics and turned professional later that year. He additionally became a Muslim in 1961, and he had won the World Heavyweight Championship from Sonny Liston in a major upset, which is, I think, where the movie begins in the age by the year of 1964. And Muhammad Ali was young at this time. He's only 22. That year, he also renounced his birth name as a slave name and formally became known as Muhammad Ali going forward. In 1966, Ali also refused to be drafted into the military, owing to his religious beliefs and ethical opposition to the Vietnam War. He was found guilty of draft evasion and stripped of his boxing titles. However, he managed to stay out of prison while appealing the decision to the Supreme Court, where his conviction ended up being overturned by 1971. He had not fought for nearly 4 years by this point. He kind of was put on a kind of forced break while he was being really heavily scrutinized by the government at this time. And a lot of people, there was a lot of controversy surrounding whether or not he was a patriot or not a patriot. But his actions as a conscientious objector from the Vietnam War ended up making him an icon for the larger 1960s counterculture generation. And he became a very high profile figure of racial pride for African Americans during the civil rights movement throughout his career, notably, for being a very close friend and ally with Malcolm X, who was his former mentor prior to his assassination, which was also covered in the film as well. Muhammad Ali fought in several historic boxing matches, such as his highly publicized fight with Sonny Liston, Joe Frazier, which was called the Fight of the Century, the Thrilla in Manila with his fight with George Foreman in The Rumble in the Jungle. And Ali also thrived in the spotlight at a time when many boxers let their managers do the talking, and he ended up becoming really renowned for his very provocative and outlandish persona. I feel like if this movie taught me anything, in addition to learning more about Muhammad Ali's life and this time in the 1960s and early 70s, was that I need to up my trash talking game, because one of the reasons why he was so famous was that he was known for his trash talking and often freestyle with rhyming schemes and spoken word poetry, and sometimes even predicted the outcomes of the matches in his interviews. Later on in his career, by 1984, he makes a public diagnosis with Parkinson's syndrome, and officially bows out during at this time and just kind of retires. He still will make some public appearances, but they become frequent or less frequent and fewer by this time. But when this movie was being made, Muhammad Ali really wanted Will Smith to play this role and often joked that he's the only person that's almost as good looking as me to play him, to which Will Smith would also like very lovingly joke back like, I'm almost too good looking to be playing you. So I feel like personality wise, they both really matched each other's energy level. I know we'll talk about this in the interview segment, but Will Smith really took a lot of time and dedication with preparation for this role. It was over a year of different form of exercises and putting on weight and watching endless clips of Muhammad Ali in the boxing ring and speaking, learning how to speak like him and using his dialect and stuff. So when they were promoting this film, sometimes they would be able to do it together, which was really great to see. I know, that would have obviously been a really neat aspect to have been able to see that with Selena, but especially in other biographical films, regardless of not whether they're sports, it's rare that the person is still alive, or if they are, that they're like willing to do guest appearances with the people that are playing them. So there is a little sneak peek. Obviously, there's a lot more. Apparently, he holds the Guinness Book of World Records of the most written about person, just because there's so many things that he's famous for, in addition for being a boxer. So he lived a very, very full life, passed away in 2016, which really wasn't that long ago in the scope of things, only about 6 years ago. So I look forward to talking about this movie today because there's lots of things to discuss.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a long one.
Bria, did you find, were there any Jet cover magazines or notable things about Will Smith in your pop culture corner today?
Yeah, well, Will was on the cover of Jet, absolutely. He was also on the cover of GQ for the second time. When I seen this cover before, just looking at other magazine stuff, I thought he was just wearing a robe, but he's actually wearing the fighting robe that he wears in the film for the fight in the jungle, which has like cool tribal African print on the bottom and on the sleeves. So I didn't pick that up till after the movie. Unfortunately, GQ has its own private archive that you need to be like a Secret Service agent to get into. I tried to find it. There is a copy on eBay for like $4, so maybe I'll buy it.
Was it like $20 shipping?
No, I think it was $4. It was like $8.
Okay,
overall.
that's not bad. Like, honestly, you end up spending sometimes that much on magazines in store anyways.
Yeah, I really wish I could find like someone who has like a hoard of a bunch of Will Smith magazines, but it is what it is. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to read his interview in that GQ, but I'm no surprise he's on the cover of Jet. He's also on the cover of like Premiere Movie magazine. So he keeping his cover boy status, you know what I'm saying?
All right.
I'm surprised he wasn't on the cover of Ebony or something. There is an Ebony cover though with like couples, and I believe him and Jada are on that. So stuff like that too. At this time, I think they were already like visually out there as a couple, but I think people are paying more attention to them around this time as a couple because of this movie and like the kids and all that stuff. But I did find some very light-ish hearted pop culture moments on Essence.
Ooh.
15 very black moments we need to revisit from 2001. So I wanted to skip this one, but their number one is Shrek. And it's really because of Eddie Murphy and Donkey and all that entails. I mean, Shrek obviously is a cultural touch point for a lot of millennials and zillennials, those borderline kids who like late 90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, an amazing movie. Hell, my great nephew likes Shrek. So, timeless. Number 2, I'm really excited to talk about because I don't know if we'll ever talk about this in depth in any ways, but Beyonce makes her debut acting role, and I would say more so in a film because Homegirl was on Smart Guy, so but she stars in 2001's Carmen, a hip opera, which was on MTV. And it brought a hip hop spin to the classic 1875 opera Carmen, which notably was starred in also by Dorothy Dandridge. So, interesting movie. I, of course, sopped it up as a kid because I was like, ooh, Beyonce, absolutely. Does it hold up? I don't know. Like, I haven't watched it in a really long time, so.
Me either.
Yeah, and so she's alongside Mekhi Phifer, and she's like singing, rapping in this. It's got like a bit of a musical feel to it. I do remember being extremely saddened that they were like, oh, you gonna die before you become the star you think you're gonna become. And I was like, that damaged me.
Yeah.
But notably, Beyonce is not some people's favorite actor or actress. But I will say that from this to let me think, like maybe Dreamgirls or even Cadillac Records, definitely some growth.
Yeah.
So she may not be Academy Award winning yet, but there was some progress made.
Right.
What is the early 2000s without mentioning, or the 90s either, without mentioning the, pivotal artist that is Missy Elliott? Because in 2001, she came out with her album Miss E, so addictive, with the songs 1 Minute Man and Get Your Freak On.
Yes.
And I mean, right? Like, just immediate bop, get to the dance floor, and then letting all the men know, hey, break us off, show me what you got.
I don't want no 1 minute man. Ooh.
Which also, as a kid, didn't know what the fuck that meant, but was I singing it? Absolutely.
For sure. Sure was.
And number 4, we have another cultural icon. This album, my favorite album of hers, just nostalgic reasons, but Alicia Keys comes out in 2001. 20 years old, Songs of A Minor, wins 5 Grammys, is rocking the braids. I had the Alicia Keys braids. I probably mentioned this before. I was, at my desk in class pretending like I was playing a piano. Like, Fallen was everywhere. It was just such a big pivot from the pop stars and the girl groups to see a musician become this huge star overnight, where it's like, oh my god, she plays an instrument. And not to shit on those who don't, because I love them, but it is a game changer.
And playing the piano and incorporating that with elements of R&B, I feel like is rare, or at least maybe not rare, but it just seemed like a very new, mixing up the genre a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say in more so elements of hip hop R&B, because you have Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Little Richard, Foundation,
but a woman to do it.
Yeah, which I believe there's a woman, I think Hazel something, who was a genius piano player. But yeah, it was still a game changer, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen the fruits of the Alicia Keys tree yet. I would say her maybe the closest thing, but I was thinking about that. I was like, I'm surprised we haven't got another young pianist, urban girl from who grew up watching Alicia Keys, and but maybe she's out there somewhere. Number 5, what is, early aughts? Again, too, without P. Diddy, because, after being acquitted from his shooting and getting J-Lo arrested, he released the one and only album, The Saga Continues, under the moniker P. Diddy. And I remember that was a big thing. Kind of like Muhammad Ali. He changed his name. And it was like, what? We can't call you Puffy now, or Puff Daddy? What's P. Diddy? What does that mean? And he's changed it since. But, I believe the song We Ain't
Going Nowhere.
Yeah. I believe that song is on that album. Yep. Number 6, Rush Hour 2 comes out. amazing series. Problematic in today's day and age, but, had us all wanting a Black friend or Asian friend, probably. Practicing our kung fu moves. Number 7, we've got a very important album in the world of hip hop. Jay-Z's The Blueprint comes out in 2001, and not just on any day. Unfortunately, it actually came out on September 11th, which didn't, I don't think, hurt it in any kind of way.
Yeah.
But The Blueprint is really the blueprint for a lot of newer-ish hip-hop artists. People like Drake, I'm sure, were inspired by The Blueprint. Lil Wayne, The Carter series. Jay-Z has had 3 Blueprint albums. Or wait, like 4 by now? So, just a pivotal album at that time. Number 8, a classic, The Proud Family comes out in 2001.
Yay!
Which, diversity, representation, all the things, amazing cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I've rewatched it in the Panini, and it still holds up for me. The pop
have you
culture.
watched we've talked about the remake, how they have...
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been trying to get there by rewatching it. Like, I'm still in my rewatch, but...
Okay, so when you've been rewatching, that's when they have those, like, J-Lo jokes, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's like, J-Lo is at Wassianica's party. And I was like, see, J-Lo was that girl. Like, y'all want to rewrite history, but, like, we were there, and she was that girl. She was on Vibe. She's in the Proud Family. She's very much included in aspects of Black culture as well. Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary concert, which, besides honoring Michael Jackson, just has so many iconic moments of the performances that took place. Destiny's Child performed, Usher performed. That was the night everyone was concerned about Whitney Houston because she looked real thin. And I remember the news and the magazines of pictures of her, like the National Enquirer, shitty magazines like that, of like, how thin's too thin, and Whitney and all this stuff. Chris Tucker, just so many moments like that, or I can picture in my mind of just that, like, tremendous event. That's like one of those must-see TV things that doesn't happen anymore.
That was probably a pay-per-view thing, yeah?
No, I feel like it was like on MTV or something. It was a 2-part concert. It was filmed in New York. It was the day before September 11th, which, right, crazy. So, like, you have all these celebrities probably in New York for this, and then September 11th happens. Like, somebody needs to do, like, a documentary on, like, that after, like, math, because that was crazy. Just interesting probably to go back, think about. Number 10, Training Day, which robbed this man of his Oscar, but got Denzel his first. Huge movie. Put Ethan Hawke, I feel like, on a very different map. It grossed $76 million. Just an amazing movie, but is it the movie that Denzel deserved an Oscar for? A lot of people don't think so. Interesting. Number 11. Again, what's the 2000s without the bop maker himself, Summer Jam classic maker, Ja Rule? Like, his album Pain is Love came out, top selling artist. You have to think at this time, I believe, like, if I recall in my JLo vault of facts, I'm Real was chart topping at this time, or around September in 2001. It was like the number 1 song. Always on Time would come out later that year, which is the first time we get to hear and see Ashanti. Living It Up, just, everywhere. So, Ja Rule.
I do.
Yeah. Everywhere. Also, another rapper on the come up, also everywhere, making us When I Move, You Move.
Just like that.
Yes. I mean, the wrong album. By this time, I think, I'm trying to think what song. Maybe like, I hate to sing this song.
Rollout, Move Bitch.
I don't know if Rollout, I think Rollout might have been on this album, but his album Word of Mouth with the F, because he's from the dirty South. It comes out. what is that? I wanna
Lick you from your head to your toes.
What the fuck is that song called?
You make so good, I don't want to leave, but I gotta. Oh, fantasy.
What's your fantasy?
Yeah, yes. But I gotta. No. What's your fantasy? I want to get you back seat, windows up. That's probably one that I know every word to.
That's one that the dirty version still surprises me. I'm like, oh.
That's a clutch your pearls moment. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. My parents were not playing that version. So, number 13 is an iconic photo shoot. Iman is telling her story via images, and so she drops a book, I Am Iman. And in the book, there's this iconic photo of all the black top supermodels at the time. That was also featured in Vanity Fair. I don't know if you can see this, Simone. But it's like all these black supermodels, Tyra, Naomi, which, you know, at that time, they weren't the bestest of friends. Also, for those Real Housewife Bravo fans out there, Cynthia Bailey is in here, right smack dab in the middle. But just an amazing, Beverly Pill, like just an amazing display of black women and gorgeous black women, a lot of them darker skinned as well. So that is definitely an image seared in my mind. Number 14, a classic sitcom comes to air, and amongst many at this time, because you have to think the Kings of Comedy just like was one of those things where everyone got a piece of something at some point. So you had like the Steve Harvey show, eventually Cedric the Entertainer had a show, the Hughleys, but the Bernie Mac show.
Oh yeah, R.I.P.
America. Like, he was everybody's uncle. The fear that I have in me that I'm gonna inherit somebody's kids. Like, such an iconic show at the time, and especially the point of view of him like breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera.
Yes, yeah, that was.
I know.
Not done very very often.
Yeah, it's just so good, and I think it's aged pretty well for a sitcom. Of course, there's always some problematic things somewhere, like his policing of Vanessa and her agency as a young woman maturing. But that's, you know, unfortunately, misogyny is a beast that we're still trying to conquer. And number 15, you mentioned this. This to me is a classic, or at least a Black Hood classic. How High. This is a movie I watched. Unfortunately, I want to say I associate this with my sister and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law reminds me a lot of like Method Man or Redman sometimes. Yeah. But I remember watching this a lot. There so many iconic lines. Like I said, boo-foo, buy us, fuck you. You know, I need money. And his little grill, all of those things. You have amazing women in here, like Lark Voorhees from Saved by the Bell, and Essence Atkins of Smart Guy fame in here, taking on some kind of mature roles. But I love this movie.
It's a 420 classic.
Yeah, it's like one of the only stoner movies I actually like. So, shall we get into the box office?
Yes. Now, I understand, even though this movie, we have a nomination for Jon Voight, which if you didn't tell me it was Jon Voight, I wouldn't have known. Never mind. We'll get to it when we get to it. And then Will Smith getting their Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor nominations. I heard a little birdie rumor that box office money-wise, this movie didn't do as commercially successful. So I am curious to hear those numbers.
Yeah, it did not, unfortunately. And where was I reading? I don't know. I've read so much stuff because, like Ali, people wrote a lot about this movie and had a lot of opinions. But I read somewhere, and it could be Screen Rant, Deadline somewhere, Screen Slam, Deadline somewhere, but that this may not have done as well because of the Lord of the Rings, because...
Really? Because Lord of the Rings, that's what did it?
That's what I read someone blame it on, was like the Lord of the Rings was just like that movie at the time. So... Yeah. But budget-wise, we have a budget of $107 million estimated. Fun fact, it is noted that Leslie Mann, that Michael Mann and Will Smith also put up some money themselves to get where they felt like this movie needed to be if the budget wasn't enough. So there might be missing dollars somewhere in there that was undisclosed. The gross... opening weekend in US and Canada was $14.7 million, the weekend of December the 30th, 2001. The gross in US and Canada was only $58.2 million. So about half of the budget. And then gross worldwide was $87.8 million.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, didn't even get close to coming back with the budget. But
yeah,
I feel like this is one of those movies in retrospect that, you know, kind of just deserved to be made and didn't need to be like some huge not cultural, but some huge blockbuster, you know? Like, it's more important of the story that's being told. So even though that's sad, I feel like it doesn't really make or break the iconicness of this film, especially given like the nominees and the critical acclaim and stuff. Simone, The House of Little Rouge.
Yes.
Not so impressed by Ali.
What the fuck? No. Because I know he liked Legends of Bagger Vance. He gave that, like 3.5 stars?
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, our man Lil Raj?
Well,
as you wear him on your chest, what do you think?
Patooey Raj. Man, even legends have their bad days, I guess. Okay, so if he didn't like it, I'm guessing it's going to be 2 or less. So I'm guessing 2 or 1.5.
2.
Damn, half credit, Lil Raj.
So, and I don't know if you saw, but there's a snippet of him and Siskel talking about Ali on YouTube. I did not,
because since it wasn't my turn to do the ratings, I wanted to stay away from it, but I did see.
Yeah, it's pretty short, but it's interesting to hear his opinion and like his I don't know, like his boisterousness of like whether or not he liked something. Yes. So his review gets straight to the point, starts off coming in hot. Okay, like a right jab to your face. Ali is a long, flat, curiously muted film about the heavyweight champion. It lacks much of the flash, fire, and humor of Muhammad Ali and is shot more in the tone of a eulogy than a celebration. There is little joy here. The film is long and plays longer because it permits itself sequences that are drawn out to inexplicable length while hurrying past others that should have been dramatic high point. It feels like an unfinished rough cut that might play better after editing. He notes the scene in Zaire where Ali is running and then he goes off the path and he goes through the village and then all the people are running with him and cheering him on. And he thinks that should have been cut shorter, which I have notes and opinions on, Mr. Ebert. The film considers obviously 10 years of Ali's life from 64 to 74, and it's a key decade in Ali's life, but you know, it's cut in half by 3 years when he was barred from boxing. So this is just movie synopsis stuff.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say about Michael Mann. Michael Mann's story of these 10 years is told in the style of events overheard. This isn't a documentary, but it seems to lack a fiction's privileged access to its hero. Key scenes play out in enigmatic snippets of dialogue. We work to make connections. We see Ali's wives, but don't feel we know them. They fade in and out like a focus like ghosts. The screenplay by Eric Roth and Mann seems reluctant to commit to a point of view and leaves us to draw our own conclusions during some scenes. You can almost sense it shrugging. Ali remains an enigma. He does note that this is actually a good job of acting by Will Smith and that he looks convincing in the ring, but the key element of his performance is capturing Ali's enigmatic improvisational personality. And there are times when he grows distant from even those close. Oh, sorry, that's about Ali. Anyways, he says the real problem with Smith's performance is the movie it finds itself in. Smith is the right actor for Ali, but this is the wrong movie. Smith is sharp, fast, funny, like the Ali of trash talking fame, but the movie doesn't unleash that side of him or his character. Ali was not only the most famous man of his time, but had fun with his fame. I can't claim any special insights, but he did spend a day with Ali. And I saw
Roger?
Little humble brag.
Okay.
And he says, I saw a man enormously entertained by life, twinkling with bemusement, lowering the tinted glass window of his Rolls limousine so that pedestrians could do a double take when they saw it was the champ. Smith could play that man, but Ali doesn't know or see him. It sees Ali as more meditative and subdued, as sad sometimes, when sadness is the last thing you feel when you risk everything on principle. The film feels like it's under a cloud. But yeah, so clearly Roger Ebert not impressed with the overall story that's going on in the video of him and Siskel. That was like one of his like emphatic points was just like, there's no arc here. Like, what are they trying to tell us or show us? Like, there's nothing here that is like, you know, getting us from A to B or whatever. It's just like, we're just going through the motions kind of this story of who Ali was. And there are things that he felt like we didn't need to see or cut. Like, did we need to see another retelling of Malcolm X's assassination? Could it have been enough to just show Ali finding out and reacting versus going through the whole like actual act? Probably the same thing with Martin Luther King's assassination. Like, what was the point of showing that? Stuff like that. So I feel like I understand where Roger is coming from in terms of like just a pure movie standpoint, but I just feel like these cultural movies, it's hard to be critical of because they're doing so much more than just like movieing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you know, Lil Raj gave it 2 stars, but how many, are we getting out the big jumbo tub for this? How many pumps of butter are we pumping tonight?
So it's hard to, I think, capture a full scope of someone's life in a movie. You know, with Selena, we see this storytelling of early childhood, even before she was born, with her father being in Los Dinos.
Yeah.
And then the like growing up of the Selena and the family band, and then, you know, her comments as a star. So, but I don't think that was Michael Mann's purpose, was to tell this like full story from birth to he couldn't even do death, because upon the release, Muhammad Ali was still alive. So like upon birth and like career wise, maybe. But like I had said earlier, this is someone who lived a very full and interesting life and had a lot of things that people could talk about. And so I feel like the movie did a pretty good job capturing what those 10 years of life was like. And maybe Michael Mann's purpose of including Malcolm X's assassination, I mean, that's purposeful since Malcolm and Muhammad were close. And even covering the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., you know, maybe adds to that historical piece of the time, that what life was like at that time. So I'm giving Ali 3.5 pumps of butter. I enjoyed watching it, although right now you can only watch it for free on a streaming app called Pluto TV, and there are a lot of commercials. It's like 10 minutes of, it's like watching it on live TV. It's like 10 minutes and then like the same, you know, 5 commercials or whatever in a row. And so for me, as someone who like struggles with attentiveness, it felt a lot longer than the movie actually was. And so I would highly suggest like just buying or downloading a full version of it without the commercials so that you can really be more immersed in the story.
Yeah, because it's a long ass movie.
It is, yeah, it is long. So with the commercials, it felt like watching Titanic on TV. It was a little tough. But, overall, I mean, this cast is amazing. And I didn't take a lot of notes, which is rare for me because I just found that I was just watching. There wasn't a lot to take notes on because I felt like it was very clear that this stylized version of acting was very different from Will Smith. I love when actors go through like body mods and transformations and like really dedicate themselves to the person and the role and the character, the persona that they're playing. So I really enjoyed it. So 3.5 pumps for me. What about you?
I don't know. I'm torn. I feel like it could easily, for me, be 3. And then I feel like we're some very generous, loving pumps away from 4. I just think in retrospect to this day, this is a big point in Will's career. So it's hard to like shrug at that. Even though he won the Oscar for King Richard, I still think Ali is like kind of a not bigger, better, but just a more pivotal and important role like in his career.
Interesting. So I haven't seen King Richard yet, but I'll definitely mentally lock that. Mentally.
Yeah, when we get there, it'd be like, didn't you say this was not as good as Ali? That's not what I'm saying, by the way.
No. I get it.
I'm just saying that I think this is just a huge moment in Will's career and a game changer. And I think that there is tons of butter that needs to be pumped for that. Like, we talk about 6 Degrees of Separation as this, key moment in seeing that, okay, he's not just the Fresh Prince and he's not just this rapper turned actor. Like, he could actually, he could act. He's acting. We get glimpses in Bad Boys. We get glimpses in Enemy of the State. We get, a real kind of turn at Legend of Badger Vance. Bagger Vance. I knew that. And that was so kind of like for him to do that and then turn around and do something like this, I feel like makes up for all the bullshit that was in Bagger Vance, as good of a message. Like, that had a fucking arc. So props to that. But like, I don't know. So anyways, I don't know. Maybe I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna be overzealous. I'm gonna give it 4 pumps of butter and call it a day.
I would say, I mean, it's a deserved 4 pumps. I think my reservation to add that half pump was maybe because of the length. And after you had mentioned Lil Raj's piece of, focusing on certain elements, it's like, was this a biographical telling of just him as a sports legend? Was this a biographical telling of him as a Muslim man, as an activist, as someone who had multiple marriages, infidelity? Like, how are you going to try and weave those pieces in there?
Yeah.
So I think I reserve my like half pump of trying to, it's not so much the focus, because the focus is just, I felt like there was a clear focus there in that there was no thing. It was just like all these things. And with a man that's complicated like Muhammad Ali, that accomplished so much, was controversial in the sports world, but huge, and earned all of these titles, and then took time off and then went back at it again. Like, it's difficult to try and capture all of that in a almost 3-hour movie. It's like 2:45 or something like that. So
yeah, I think my half pump comes from the fact that, as I said when we started, is that, this is a huge, important person and, you know, kind of like, again, important movie for Will. So I feel like the intention behind this movie is pure, and I feel like I can't hate on that. Like,
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that more as when we talk about Will and his choices and whatnot in interviews. But shall we get into the cast of this star-studded affair?
Let's do it. So, this movie obviously stars Will Smith as the leading role, Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali. Jamie Foxx as Drew Bundini Brown. And for those who don't know, Will and Jamie are about the same age. So I think they're a year and a half apart from each other. But yet their age gap looked like an age gap in this movie. And so that was very impressive. We also have Jon Voight, our favorite anaconda snakeskin daddy, and as the sportscaster Howard Cosell. And he also went through like 6 hours in the chair every day for hair and makeup for this to really look that part. Now you can hear Jon Voight's voice when he speaks, but looks wise, just totally different. There's also Mario Van Peebles, who plays Malcolm X, Ron Silver, who plays Angelo Dundee, Jeffrey Wright as Howard Bingham, who was a like journalist who kind of, and like photographer who followed Muhammad Ali throughout his career. Tell me if I'm pronouncing this name wrong. Mykelti Williamson?
I think that's fine.
Okay. As Don King. Jada Pinkett-Smith as Muhammad Ali's first wife, Sonji. Nona Gaye as Belinda Ali, the second wife. Michael Michelle as Veronica Porsche, who Muhammad Ali had an affair with.
He wound up marrying her, but the movie stops before there.
Correct. Giancarlo Esposito as Cassius Clay Sr., Muhammad Ali's dad, who, again, I think they're only 10 years apart. They're like 10
years apart, yeah.
Yeah. LeVar Burton, butterfly in the sky. I can fly twice as high as Martin Luther King Jr., although that role is really, really small, but still an icon. And we also have another 6 Degrees, Bruce McGill, who was just in Legends of Bagger Vance, plays a really small role. Someone named Bradley. Lots of great actors. I know I might be missing a few. Is there anyone else important that you'd like to mention?
Papa Pope, Olivia Pope's daddy, Joe Morton, another infamous in a lot of things Black actor. He actually played, or did he play? No, he didn't play Malcolm X. He was in a TV movie about Malcolm X. And then Paul Rodriguez Sr., P-Rod's daddy, who was also in Made in America. And there's some very salacious news regarding him and how he was treated on Ali by Will Smith.
What? Wait, what? I didn't hear this.
So when I was looking up stuff, this came up. And as of lately, after everything that happened at the Oscars, you know, I feel like people who have been holding on to something regarding Will. But Paul Rodriguez is one of the few people who are like, yeah, he was really an asshole to me when we were making Ali. And he thinks that it was because the person he was playing, Dr. Ferdy Pacheco, actually had an altercation with Will and called him the N-word. And so from that point on, he felt like Will was taking it really personally and against him because he was playing that character. And that because of Will's treatment, then the rest of the cast started acting similarly towards him. And no matter what he kind of said or did, like, it was not good enough and stuff. I do want to note too that Jon Voight, I guess, talked to him and was like, you know, he is a method actor in some senses, and he's really into this role right now, and he has an immense amount of pressure on him in regards to just the subject matter of the movie, producing the movie, all that stuff. Like, a lot of that is on his shoulders right now. So, like, maybe don't take it personal right now. Like, finish filming, let things play out, and maybe things will get better. I don't think they ever got better. So I'll be honest, I have a hard time picking a side regarding that, because part of me is like, Ali is like, what, 20 years ago now? And you're bringing this back up now because, you know, everyone's shitting on him at this time. But then again, like, you know, sometimes when people treat you poorly, that just sticks with you. And Paul Rodriguez feels like that in part fucked up his career because his role got cut. So he should have been in the movie more, I guess. And because of that, you know, maybe opportunities were missed because if people had seen him in this Oscar nominated type film, you know, maybe that would have opened up doors for him in other ways. So I absolutely understand that part of it. But the thing that I'm hesitant to be like, fuck Will Smith about is like the rest of the cast jumping on board. Because I feel like that doesn't just happen like off of nothing.
Yeah, that they, like, someone else could have confirmed or verified that that's true.
I don't know. I find that interesting though. So sorry, Paul Rodriguez, that you did not enjoy shooting this film. But let's talk about some of these performances though by some of these co-stars. I want to talk about Jamie Foxx just because up until this point, Jamie Foxx from In Living Color to Ali, you know, he has the Jamie Foxx show. He's in Any Given Sunday, The Players Club, my fave, Booty Call. Both those, actually, The Players Club and Booty Call.
Just seeing you, like, watching the movie.
But, you know, he hasn't had, like, I think Any Given Sunday might have been a bit of a turning point for him, but he was very much on the rise, and obviously he did the skits in Big Willie style, and people really saw him more as a comedian than a serious dramatic actor. Obviously, we know eventually he plays Ray, also wins an Oscar, and continues to, like, up his game. But there's an interview with Will on YouTube where he talks about how, you know, he saw kind of that within Jamie. He's like, I don't know if he knows it, but he has it. And like, you know, and I think that's amazing to see that because I think comedians great at being funny, but I think they don't get enough props for when they do go serious, like him, Jim Carrey, you know, because it's not so much of a jump as we think it is, I feel like, but it's still like super just like, oh my god, unexpected. And then bless him, his paycheck must have been worth it for that haircut that he had to endure. I don't know if that was his hair. Yeah, I don't know if that was his hair or like they worked out some kind of prosthetic and wig situation. But if he legit shaved his head like that and was walking around like that, then like, you know, hats off to him.
Yeah. That's what made me look up when I guess probably within the first like 15, 20 minutes of the movie when Bandini approaches Ali and is like, I want to work for you. I want to represent you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I had to Google how old is Jamie Foxx? How old is Will Smith? And then when I realized that they're about the same age, I was like, God damn. Like they made him look old. Yeah. And it's probably that wig or the, you know, the hairpiece or something that they had done. But I mean, Bandini too also struggled with alcohol addiction and, you know, was a little bit all over the place. But I think you bring up a really good point about when comedic actors make this turn to serious roles. And when you mentioned Jim Carrey specifically, I remember as a teen when Jim Carrey started doing Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Truman Show, Number 23, like all these serious roles, I used to scoff and be like, stick to your lane, Jim. Like you're good as a comedic actor, like, but now obviously as I'm older, I can understand and appreciate someone wanting to improve on their craft or try something different. Or maybe you're tired of doing comedies and you don't want to be like pigeonholed in this one type of roles.
I do think for comedic actors, it probably takes some time to shift from, you know, things like a Fire Marshal Bill or I want to say Jamie Foxx's like big skit was like Wanda or something where he's like a lady and he like poked his lips out and stuff like that. But, you know, to take those ingrained images of these dudes being ridiculously silly out of your mind and be like, okay, now I'm supposed to believe that they're like these real people with real problems and stuff like that. But I commend him. I think he obviously did super well in this role.
Yes.
Doing that. Let's talk about your snake daddy, Jon Voight, also known as King of Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, and also government asshole and enemy of the state. So this is the second time working with Will Smith. I thought that their working relationship at this movie was really cute. I liked the like witty banter that was, spoken between the two, and that it didn't seem to affect their like regular relationship. Like when Ali was exhumed of charges from not, joining the Vietnam War. Whether or not this is historically true or not, it was Howard Cosell that called Muhammad and his household, in the movie at least, that said like they're dropping the charges, congratulations and stuff. Like it seemed like even though they kind of gave each other shit and a hard time about their hair or their performance in the boxing ring or something, like they still kind of really respected each other. Now, I don't know a lot about Howard Cosell and his like real like actual life. But again, I'm thinking of the new Batman movie that was just released and how Colin Farrell played the Penguin. And if you didn't know it was Colin Farrell, you wouldn't know it was Colin Farrell. And I was actually really impressed with this Jon Voight character of like, because I was sitting and watching the movie and was like, he's top billed. Like he is number 3 next to after Will Smith and Jamie Foxx. So where is he? Because he's very recognizable. And then I looked it up and I was like, motherfucker, it's the sportscaster guy. I thought that was impressive. His character's pretty minor, actually. I feel like almost Malcolm X, Mario Van Peebles had more of a dialogue or more speaking time, even though he was in the movie less than John.
I think that obviously Malcolm X is just a bigger deal in presence. Like, that, okay, this is Malcolm X. So, like, whatever he's saying and talking about is, like, of importance in the scheme of things. Whereas, like, these moments with Howard Cosell are kind of like these cute ESPN moments of, Muhammad Ali talking crap, trying to get back into fighting, trying to make, a point for him to be able to fight still, or calling out people to try to get the public to support him. Like, yeah, we want to see him in Frasier. Absolutely. Like, we pay, So I because Howard Cosell obviously is in the movie till the end, really. I'm curious if you did figure out how long they have in the movie, who would win. But I just think Malcolm X just seemed like more important when he was on screen.
Yeah, agreed. Now, I just looked this up in real life. I mean, they were, I don't know if like friends is the right word, but Howard Cosell died in 1995. He was born in 1918, so he was like very much older. Muhammad Ali had went to his funeral, which I feel shows a definite sign of respect. But overall, I liked and enjoyed the role.
Yeah. Mario Van Peebles, I mean, I don't want this to be controversial, but I just think he looked more like Malcolm than Denzel did in the Malcolm X movie. So I really liked his portrayal of Malcolm. And Mario Van Peebles is just sexy. So.
I was going to say, I was like, he's a sexy man.
Yes. So I really enjoyed his portrayal of Malcolm X, which has been another role that's kind of been done by numerous people. So there's definitely different like options out there. So to hold his own in this movie with this cast and stuff, I think was great. And then what was I gonna say? I do agree with Roger Ebert that we didn't need to see Malcolm X. Like when that happened, I was like, do we need all this right now? But I feel like either that's like a creative choice in trying to be like, this is how real shit was back then, especially with like hinting at like the FBI surveillance and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed his contribution to this lovely picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jeffrey Wright is someone who's kind of worked really hard to make a name for himself. Kind of always had these like smallish roles here and there. I think one of his standout performances is him as Muddy Waters in Cadillac Records.
Yes.
And this role, he plays someone who's like always there, but not really, because he's a photographer. So he's there to capture the moments. And there's so many parts of the movie where I'm like trying to think about like when Ali was running through the village, or like when they first go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And he's like on the back of the car taking pictures, and Ollie's like in the car waving and stuff. I'm like, these have to be real pictures that they're like kind of recreating these moments. Mm-hmm. And even during the rumble in the jungle when he's like, under the ring, like snapping away and stuff, I'm like, oh, like I know the pictures from this fight where he's like standing over Foreman and stuff like that after he knocks him out. So his presence definitely felt, but he's more of a like be seen, not heard type of guy. So
yeah, I would agree. And speaking of Batman, he played Commissioner Gordon in the new remake of the Batman movie. So
Don King is played by McKelty Williamson, who many might know as Bubba in Forrest Gump.
Yes!
And he's been in various other things. He was in Fences with Denzel. Something I unfortunately remember him from is Waiting to Exhale. He plays Troy, which is the guy that Layla Rashawn dates, who is outside and is like, "You raggedy bitch," like, which is a popular gif. But that Don King hair, woo, like, he pulled it off. I will say. Also, another rhymer. I feel like he probably had some of the hardest lines in the movie. Let's talk about the ladies of this movie, because Muhammad Ali was a ladies' man.
So Jada Pinkett-Smith plays the role of Muhammad Ali's first wife, Sonji, and she, in real life, was like an ex-Playboy bunny cocktail waitress. They kind of meet at this little jazz club. And the scenes that she's in it very briefly for the movie, because their marriage only lasted a year or two because they got married quickly after their first date. Ali, not forced, but was like, hey, you got to convert to Islam and become a Muslim if you want to marry me, which Sonji was like not always down for. Their relationship, as brief as it was on screen, I got little sprinkles of El Cantante in there.
Yes.
A little bit of Poochie and Hector vibes, although not as tumultuous maybe. But, I thought that the scene where they're having sex when they come back from the nightclub, like it felt very intimate. And I think it's just because obviously Will and Jada have that established relationship and intimacy. But God, I thought she looked so beautiful in that like 1960s hairstyle and her makeup. And I love this era of clothing and hair anyways, but I thought she looked so beautiful.
I thought she looked good. I do feel like I knew the wig was a wig though. So it gave me very much like Dreamgirls and Supremes and stuff.
Yes, it did.
I do feel like acting wise, like I felt like it was just Jada being Jada in some aspects, especially because she's the firecracker wife. Yeah. And so she is like, I'm submissive to you, okay? These other brothers, X and Z, I'm not listening to them and they can't tell me what to do. And so I was like, oh my God, you can't take the girl out of Baltimore, but you cannot take the Baltimore out of the girl. It's very much giving me Peaches and all the woos and stuff, other roles she's done. But I do think that her and Will's chemistry really paid off on screen, which can be a hit or miss with real life couples. They did Oprah, Will did Oprah and Jada came on as well. And so she talks about not wanting to be in the movie with him. And she had just committed to do The Matrix, the sequels, and she had just had Willow and she hadn't been on screen, and she knew Michael Mann is like this perfectionist like type director, so she's like, I don't know if I could be all that right now. But she did do it. And she does say that she did have fun. She enjoyed working with her husband, which too was like a gamble because it's like, I don't know what's going to be like working together. Like, are you going to be trying to boss me around and tell me what to do and stuff like that? And so I think I really enjoyed that Oprah interview overall because, you know, Will, Jada, and him, little baby Jaden comes out with Jada. Muhammad Ali comes out and talks. So that's a great interview that I'll definitely post clips of.
Yes.
But I thought it was very interesting that she didn't want to do it and was kind of like not gung-ho about it. So for that, I give her a good job. Well done. And she really enjoyed spending time with her husband because, again, they had just had a baby. So oddly enough, even though the sex scenes are awkward to film in front of people, you know, they felt like we get time away from our kids to just be together in some way. So I thought that was sweet. Moving on to his second wife, played by Nona Gaye. If you don't know, this is Marvin Gaye's daughter.
Makes sense with the last name.
Yeah, who is a tremendous beauty. Please Google Nona Gaye if you don't know.
Gosh,
because
she's so pretty.
Yes, so pretty. And she has some notable other roles to her name. She also was in Matrix movies. She's in Crash, The Polar Express, Harlem Nights. She also dated Prince. I mean, to be a nepotism baby, but then just be iconic on your own it's not easy, okay? So, shout out to Nona Gaye. I really liked Belinda Ali. I feel like if I liked any of his wives, it would be her. Because it sucks too, because he finally got like, okay, here's a woman who is Muslim and is a part of the nation. I believe Belinda Ali's father had a pretty high-ranking role within the Nation of Islam. And so she was about that life. But then, like, he's still cheating on her and all this stuff. So it's like, you know, be careful what you wish for, because men don't know what they want. But I like the part of her character where she was like trying to help him realize how much the Nation of Islam was using him and not helping him as much as he thought. Like when he didn't want to be in the Vietnam War, they kind of withdrew support from him. And he couldn't fight, and he was, you know, broke of some sorts. So those moments, I felt like her character really shined. And then obviously when she goes to Africa and she's like, why you gotta embarrass me like this?
He was like, I don't intend on losing. And she's like, neither do I, bitch.
Right. And she had, for a Muslim woman, she had some outfits too. Like,
she did. I mean, obviously within the church, she's like full coverage. But then some of her other fits, like she wears the color like green very well, which is a difficult color to pull off.
And red. And
yes.
Yeah. So shout out to her. And then we have Miss Veronica Porsche, played by Michael Michelle, who is just, I mean, Jada and Nona are beautiful. Michael Michelle is just that like weird, breathtakingly like beautiful. Like you see her and like you're just like, damn, God has favorites. And I'm sure with Nona and Jada, I would feel that way too. But like she's like a notch, maybe a notch and a half above them, and for me at least, because I feel like anytime I see her, I'm like, oh my God, like why is she so pretty and why does she age well? To me, she's like just been in like things here and there. Memorably, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Yep. She's one of the co-workers Matthew bets against about the diamond account, but all over Law and Order episodes.
She's very like TV famous.
Yeah, so gorgeous, gorgeous blue-eyed beauty. I think that's it too. It's unfortunately the deadly combo of light skin and light eyes that just is, you know, you can hate on it if you want to, but it is kind of like
it's a look. It's a look.
Yes. And then just tremendous supporting cast. Again, Juan Carlo Esposito. I mean, when is he not great? When is he not great? And LeVar Burton, same thing as Martin Luther King. But this cast was so well, we've talked about them so much.
I know.
More than any other cast. I'd say we just jump right into Will and the movie.
Let's do it.
So, like you said, the preparation for this movie. Okay, let's just take you through a day of Will Smith pre-filming Ali. Okay, we've got 5 a.m. running 5 miles a day.
Yes.
Then breakfast. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. boxing, technical box stuff. Islamic studies, dialect trainings for his voice, and then a neurobiologist to help him map his brain to be able to mimic Muhammad Ali's moves in the ring. Then, we're not done yet. Weightlifting. After all of that, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for damn near a year. Like...
a lot. And in his interviews, he was like, someone was like, how do you like move on from that? He's like, you don't really, like, it's not just a schedule that you can be like, oh, thank God I'm done. Like after doing that for a full year, it becomes so routine. If we know anything about habits, it takes like 12 days or something to form a strong habit with people. And so to go through that every single day, knowing that you are going to be, and I think that was like part of where Will's hesitation to take this role, kind of like what you had said when we first started recording of like, I hope we do this justice.
Yeah.
He was really nervous about taking this role because, you know, if you fuck up on a Muhammad Ali movie, people are going to remember that. And I think he was, definitely really nervous to take on this role and initially didn't want to do it. But it was the convincing of Michael Mann and Muhammad Ali himself and some other people in his corner that were like, you should really consider doing this and giving it a shot. But
yeah, hell, Jada was even like, I don't know if you should do this, baby. Like, this is a lot. If you fuck up the Ali movie, like, you know, that is, it could be like damn near career suicide almost, you know. In the Oprah interview, Oprah is like, I hear that, you know, this physical shape has altered your sex drive, your sex life. You're calling yourself Will-agra, and he's just like, you know, when you're in the top like shape mentally, physically, and you're just like, you know, kind of running on all cylinders, a lot of things work faster and better. And so I guess he had a really high sex drive at this time, and was feeling himself. And I feel like most people who get into good shape want to show it off and want to, like...
rightly so. We see that shit all the time when someone drops some lbs. They want to show it off on Instagram and be like, look at my abs. We'll do like a little mirror selfie. You deserve it. You know what? If you're going through all of that training and shit, like, more power to you.
I do want to go back, though, and go back to kind of the turmoil of going through with this movie, because this movie kind of laid in development hell for more than a decade, according to this trivia snippet on IMDb. And on Wikipedia, they talk about this too as more like someone, I don't know, read the article, someone got the rights to Muhammad Ali's life story, and then of course you have to like shop or like get a script written, shop that around and stuff. So that took a long time. And then finally around 98, like Will was kind of attached to it. And hell, so many directors possibly could have done this.
Barry Sonnenfeld almost.
Right. I was like,
which would have been such a different movie.
But it makes sense because him and Will kind of had this relationship from Men in Black and Wild Wild West. But Wild Wild West was the, no, not this one. You can't have this one. So he got unattached. Oliver Stone was someone possibly attached. Norman Jewison was possibly attached. And he notably made The Hurricane with Denzel Washington, which is another fight movie or boxing movie. And Spike Lee. And I just want to get into this little tidbit here because unironically, I did not know this when we talked about Bagger Vance, because I was like, you know, Will took this role. It's very problematic for Black people. Spike Lee had a problem with it. And it's an interesting choice for him to go this route compared to like Denzel partnering with a Black director telling very Black-ass stories like Denzel and Spike. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that he kind of had an opportunity to work with Spike Lee and was kind of like, nah, and then Spike Lee was kind of like, nah, like I was thrown back by. According to Spike Lee, you know, it is the final decision came down to Will. And so when he met with Will, you know, he asked him, you know, do you think you can broaden your, like, what can you do that would, you know, broaden your perspective on the, and he says they felt it would become a narrow militant movie. And so I think the studios were kind of crossing their fingers that he wouldn't go with Spike, but if Will wanted to, he very much could have. And that Michael Mann could deliver a more mainstream movie. And I think that word mainstream just says so much about that choice. And I'm so curious what an Ali movie would have looked like under Spike Lee. And I don't fault Will for choosing to not go that route. And I feel like part of that is just because while Muhammad Ali is super important to Black people, he is a global star, you know? So in some sense, I get not wanting it to make it just like a Black movie, like a Malcolm X movie kind of feels like, where, you know, I feel like it's very rare outside of a historical context if non-Black people watch Malcolm X just for the movie of it all. But yeah, I just found that so interesting that he didn't want to work with Spike Lee, and Spike Lee was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. If that's the question you're going to ask me going into this, then no. Like, he's not going to choose. So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But the fact, too, like you said, that Leslie Mann, and Will says this, and I actually understand his point of view, especially when you consider how much he was like, I don't know, this is a big thing for me to do, and there's a lot of pressure, and I don't want to fuck it up. To have someone like Michael Mann. Do I keep calling him Leslie?
You said it briefly. You're just like Leslie Mann, but I think that was in your subconscious. I wasn't going to say anything unless you continuously say it. You're fine.
Leslie Mann is a great director. To have someone like Michael Mann kind of map out for you, this is how we do this. This is how you become Ali. You need to do this. You need to do that. We'll have this person come in and work with you. That level, I think, of detail, I think for taking on something of this magnitude is kind of necessary versus like, I know you're a dope director. I trust your vision. Let's do it. Versus like, I don't know if I could do this. And then somebody like, yeah, this is what we have to do. You just have to do this, and then we'll be ready. And, you know, and I feel like maybe that was like the big selling point for Michael Mann directing this, was that Will felt like, okay, he knows what he wants from me and what I need to do. And like, I feel like Will's a guy who loves an assignment. I like an assignment, you know? Of course.
I need clear directions. I need to know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Versus like, okay, you do your thing, figure out who Muhammad Ali is, go immerse yourself, watch footage. Right. And I think Michael Mann was like, yes, you're going to watch footage, but you're also going to sit with this neurobiologist and sit in a dark room and watch one move on repeat until it fucking singes in your brain. Yeah.
Because Will Smith, like, kind of just a few times in those interviews would kind of just laugh and chalk it up and be like, oh, well, that's Michael Mann. Like, as if that was his directing style, that to go through and watch these boxing matches, but not just the entirety of it, but just little clips and segments of it, so that you really make sure that you not just have like that posture and general mannerism of a person, but that when you step onto camera, people believe you that you're a boxer, that you're not Will Smith. Like, their suspension of disbelief is very lowered.
Yeah, which is important for someone like Muhammad Ali, who there's tons of footage of, there's tons of documentaries of him, and to do a fictionalized portrayal of him, you have to make people buy into that. Otherwise, it's like, I could go watch the Frazier Ali fight. I could go watch the Foreman Ali Rumble in the Jungle. I don't need to watch Will Smith pretend to be Ali. So I think that was super important. And I tried to watch like Denzel and Spike stuff to see them talking about the making of Malcolm X, to kind of understand maybe the differences creatively that maybe were being offered up. And I feel like, to me at least, I just got the sense that Denzel did a lot of work on his own and not necessarily at the direction of Spike to like do this or that. More so like, you know, it was just, again, like, you have to play Malcolm X, so do what you need to do to get into character, versus like having a laid out plan and method of execution delivered to you like Michael Mann did. So in that regard, at least I feel like, okay, I kind of understand that, but I still am very curious what an Ali Spike Lee joint will be like. So I just wanted to squeeze that in there.
No, I'm glad you did.
But yeah, so, I mean, besides the physicality of the role, we also get a beautiful jump in this terrible accent from Bagger Vance to a pretty believable Ali dialect in this movie.
There's lots of footage of, I don't want to say lots, but there is footage of Will Smith and Ali together as they, you know, were filmed on set for the making of this film. And as there's one clip where it's just kind of Will Smith like boxing for like 10 minutes straight, and then you see Muhammad Ali in the back kind of giving him pointers. And when Muhammad Ali talks, even though he's obviously much older than Will Smith portrays him in the movie, their dialect sounds very similar, to the point where I had to do a double take and look down at the screen to make sure that it wasn't just like audio clip taken from the movie of Will Smith portraying Muhammad Ali. It did kind of give me some 6 Degrees of Separation vibes in terms of how he sounded and some of his mannerisms were. But
the haircut.
Yeah, the haircut. But when you listen to Muhammad Ali talking and then you listen to Will Smith in this movie, it's pretty fucking close. And I think that that's really impressive when an actor is able to capture someone's mannerisms, even though you can still look at the actor and say, oh, that's clearly Will Smith. Yeah. Even though putting on the extra like 35-ish pounds of muscle distorted his face and kind of distorted some of his features a little bit. I said it at the top of the show, I just enjoy when actors really put themselves through this physical and mental manipulation to go through a role. And that isn't what makes a good actor. Lots of people are able to be good actors and actresses without having to gain or lose weight or put on these prosthetics or study and fake an accent or pretend to be someone else. Like, you know, you don't have to necessarily do that to get special recognition, but I think not everyone is willing to do that. And I think it's really cool when actors are like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna do something different for this role.
Yeah, it's a game changer. And I feel like and again, it's not to diminish those who choose not to do it, but I do think it's like a different level of seriousness of the craft, because I mean, I think acting's super hard in general, and then to take it to a level where you're suspending someone's disbelief of like, okay, we know Will Smith as the Fresh Prince, as Mike Lowry in Bad Boys, as Jay in Men in Black, and like believing all those characters, but still also knowing within our minds, oh yeah, that's Will, to a point where it's like, I lose Will and Ali, I feel like pretty comfortably. And that is what is where audiences usually are just like, oh, like, you know, that's amazing. Like,
we've said this before on the show that Will Smithed his way through the role.
Yeah.
Could not say that. Like, there weren't instances where I'm like, there he is. Like, I was really taken out that it was Will Smith.
Yeah. And I will say, like, again, we'll get to King Richard when we get there. I think he did that in King Richard, but I think this is different because we weren't expecting this of him, really. This was his really, like, I could do this shit moment. Whereas once we get to King Richard, we're like, yeah, we know Will Smith's very capable.
He doesn't have much to prove at that point.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, like, is this going to be the one that's going to get him, you know, the Oscar and whatnot. I do want to go back to Roger and his commentary that, you know, like, Will is good in this movie. Like, it's not his performance. It's the movie and the missed opportunity of kind of telling this side of Ali that we don't know and haven't seen. And I think that was probably a big part of this movie to me, because I'm trying to think. It's kind of like El Cantante, where it's like you have a biopic of this person, and unfortunately I don't know Hector Lavoe as well as I kind of knew of Ali more, but like you have this biopic of this person and you just kind of get the very surface level of them and their problem of like, okay, yes, he had these very historical moments about the war and then losing his boxing license and fighting to come back in these iconic fight. But where is Ali, the husband, Ali, the father? And like Roger says, like his wives are there, but they're very glossed over. And so where are the moments of him as a person, you know? And part of me feels like it's just like a man movie where we're not going to get that. Like, I feel like, and that's not to shit on men and male directors and whatnot, that they would never tell a story like that. But I think it doesn't surprise me that this movie about an athlete is very sports driven and centered around his sports career versus the man behind the athlete. When you get to people like now, like someone like LeBron, where, you know, they're like, I'm more than an athlete. I can have or Kaepernick, I have an opinion about political things and not be told to shut up and dribble. And just like Ali paved the way for them, but getting more beyond just the game or the sport that they play. But like, you know, what are the things that made them come to that decision to stand up and say, hey, no, I'm not going to fight in a war that has nothing to do with me, when at home I get treated just as poorly as those people, or I'm no better than them. And so I don't know how much more you could have gone in depth in terms of that, but I would have loved to see, like, when he was not fighting, that was like 3 to 4 years. And like, yeah, he was trying to get back to fighting, but I would have loved to see like his home life at that time and to see how that affected his kids. Like, was he a miserable dad because he's not able to do what he wants to do, which is fight and, you know, be the heavyweight champ? Was he a miserable husband? Was he not helpful around the house? Like, stuff like that, where it's like those moments of just like, wow, okay, this is who Muhammad Ali as a person was. But, you know, I don't know if we would get that from a male director.
Probably not. I mean, this definitely is a male-centered point of view movie. Again, I keep on going back to the point that Roger Ebert brought up about, you know, his wives and because I feel like you can't be one person without the other. Like, although there are multiple aspects to a person's life, those aspects still make up who you are. So, yeah, I agree with you. It would have been nice to have seen those moments where Ali was taking time off of fighting and just putting his time and dedication to learning more about Islam or becoming more connected with the like African heritage of it. But,
or even like his relationship with Malcolm, like the grief that came with that, the guilt that came with that, knowing that he had removed himself from him. And then also reckoning with the fact, like, once he stopped boxing, he also got excommunicated kind of from the Navy and being like, shit, this is what happened to Malcolm and I was okay with it then and now they're doing this to me. Like there had to be feelings about that. So like stuff like that to me are like little missed opportunities. Hell, even his relationship towards the end where he's like filling Veronica Porsche is like very surface level of just like, oh damn, she's damn cool. Like my wife's not here, great, let's go for a walk. Versus like actually being like, okay, I could see why like he would be tempted by this woman. Whereas it's just like, you just because you can, you just doing it. Like and I mean that could be very much true too because he's an athlete, so I'm sure that's true. But I'm just thinking of moment like I do think they do a good job of like his foundation as a child, like the scene of him watching his father paint this mural of white Jesus, and you could see in his face that he's just like, something ain't right. Like why is he white? And and then getting on the bus with his father and going to the colored only section and then seeing Emmett Till on the newspaper. Like those are very smart moments that didn't take up a lot of time but gave a lot of like insight into like maybe him joining Islam and him changing his name in those pivotal points in his life,
in addition to offering perspective of like the time, era, and history of his life.
Yeah. And I feel like there could have been more of that throughout, like once he was a box. And I'm just thinking of like, moments in other biopics. And again, I'm sorry, our point of reference is going to be J-Lo. But Selena, just small moments of like her on the bus with her mom and, talk like her mom rubbing her head, that moment when she's just talking with her about like her dreams and like wanting a baby, and even when Chris comes and brings food and she's like, I want to farm with goats, and like those little glimpses of like she's more than just this dancer, singer, entertainer. Like she was a human being who wanted a normal-ish life for a family, and we got deprived of that. And Muhammad Ali had that, but it's like we didn't get to see that. So I feel like that's my only gripe of this movie.
Did you have any like special connections to this movie or any of the characters?
I mean, I feel like yes and no. I will say I remember during Black History Month, I think I was in like 3rd grade. I went to a primarily Black and Latino elementary school, so Black History Month was actually like a big to-do. Like I only had a white teacher when I was in middle school, and then I had an Asian teacher as a kindergarten teacher, but other than that, I had all Black teachers up until then. So, and our principal was Black up until like 4th grade, I think, or something. So actually, I don't know what grade it was. It wasn't 3rd grade now that I think about it. I think it might have been 4th. But anyways, we did Black History Month stuff pretty big. Like we had an assembly. Everyone did stuff on their in class like the front of the hallway bulletin board, stuff like that. And I remember we did these little gingerbread type men like cutouts of historic figures. And so of course so many kids did Martin Luther King Jr. and very notable people that are always at the forefront of Black History Month. And I chose Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
And so I remember my teacher being like, what, good job for you for like not picking somebody that, everyone else is picking or that, is rarely talked about, like going outside of the box a bit. And I feel like that was around this time of this movie. It had to be. But also, I was Layla Ali for Halloween one year, and I feel like it had to be the same year. And I had like some shiny little Adidas shorts, and I wore like my mom's Victoria's Secret robe, and I had like boxing gloves from the flea market. But like, that's what...
Insert picture for social media here.
I don't think I have a picture of that costume.
Bria.
That's not my fault. That's my parents. I would love to have... I am so jealous of these fucking tech babies that are just going to have their whole fucking life documented. Like, good luck with that, like, 10 terabytes of your life and figuring out how to even enjoy all of that content.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I feel like there are pictures I just, like, they just weren't important enough to my parents to keep organized and maintain where they are. So, you know, I wish I did, but that was a good costume for me to choose to do that. And then I also, this movie just reminded me of my dad a lot, and I think a lot of Black men have this reverence for Muhammad Ali, and that era of athleticism and boxing and such. And I also remember him, I feel like Adidas came out with a line of clothes for Ali and Cassius Clay stuff, and he had a good amount of some of that stuff, so I remember stuff like that. So that's as personal as it gets for me. But pretty cool, I feel like. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what about you?
Unfortunately, not in the same length as you. I'm not someone who's infamously known for knowing a lot about in the sports world in general. But I've known who Muhammad Ali was, obviously, prior to this film. And as a teacher, let's see, my first job after college, I worked with a company called Girls Inc. and I did an after-school literacy program. And historically, Girls Inc. always did or targeted like a specific girls after school, like reading, writing, literacy program in underserved communities in the Bay Area, East Bay Area. But the year that they hired me, they piloted a boys program. And they're like, sure, Simone, with no teaching experience, like go take these boys from, I worked at a school in San Leandro and in Oakland as well. And one of the things that we did learn about, like, we had like a sports heroes week. And I tried to pick like specifically female athletes for them to learn more about. But one of the boys in the program really loved Muhammad Ali and really wanted to make his little book report on Muhammad Ali. But so kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But other than that, not a lot of necessarily personal connections. I saw this movie much later than 2001, probably not until about college, late high school is when I saw this movie for the first time. But always remembered this as something that stood out to me as a turning point in Will Smith's career. And when we decided that we were going to do Will Smith for the second season of Roll Call, was for sure excited to get to this one in addition to like all of the other classics that he was in. But I almost think of this as like a Will Smith classic, like, but in a different classic than like you would say Men in Black or Wild Wild West might be.
Yeah, agreed. I also feel like Muhammad Ali is one of those figures in Black households that is definitely like in your pop-pop's garage or something. Like, you know, his pictures, like, I feel like I've seen throughout my life, like, always someone has a Muhammad Ali picture. And too, my dad was almost kind of Muslim in the Nation of Islam. I think that too is probably why such a big deal maybe in his life a little bit, is just because that influence. Like, there's definitely a point where a lot of young Black men were looking towards that group and religious group as, you know, some kind of alternative to the, you know, very Baptist Christian type of upbringing probably most of them had. So I think I find that funny more than anything, because I was like, ooh, that's very close to, like, who knows if I would have existed or what my life would have been if he, like, really followed through with that. But yeah. Are there any plot points you would like to talk about Ali? Or I know at least not so much plot, but like I thought the cinematography in this was amazing, and the sound design and sound effects or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, specifically the scene where Muhammad Ali goes to Africa. I believe some of the filming was in Mozambique. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So
no, you're not wrong. You're wrong.
Okay. When he's running through the town and the children are kind of screaming and chanting after him, like that was really impactful, and that they like just kind of on a loop replayed that sound bit over and over with a great like musical overlay, almost like an African chant musical overlay. I don't know if that's correct to say, but that's more towards the last like 20-30 minutes of the movie. That really sticks out to me. But I fucking love Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke is one of my favorite artists of all times. We'll go through and listen to Sam Cooke like throughout the year, not just when I'm feeling in a particular way. Like there are artists that I'll go back and listen to when I'm like in a mood, but
yeah,
like, Sam Cooke is both uplifting and also like very impactful as an artist. So this whole musical opening of this movie, with someone playing Sam Cooke in a nightclub, and we get Twisting the Night Away, we have Change Is Gonna Come, we have You Send Me, like it just all of these really wonderful Sam Cooke songs interwoven throughout the movie was really awesome for me to enjoy. Great soundtrack. But yeah, what about you?
The first thing I noted was the sound choices of the fight between him and Sonny starting. I think there's just like this weird like kind of hum and like these moments of silence, and then the camera work too of like alternating from like these wide shots from the audience to like in the ring, and then to like body shots where it looks like you're getting punched, like you can see the up close action. And even sound wise later on in the Rumble in the Jungle fight, where you know you hear Ali's stream of consciousness, or like him talking to himself, like you know, that guy over there will die to win, like what are you gonna do to win this? And I think that too was a big part of Will's development as he learned how to fight, is like he talks about the power of taking a punch and then getting back up, and like you feel like a new man and a new person, like okay, I got hit but I'm still here kind of thing. And again, getting into that mindset of like that guy across the ring from you will do anything to win. What are you gonna do as well? Like, are you in it to win it? Are you about that life? Are you gonna die to, you know, be the champ and stuff like that? And I am so fortunate too that my lazy ass decided to not watch this on my iPad in bed or like up in this office studio room, and I went downstairs and I watched it on the big TV with the sound bar, and I turned up the subwoofer. So there were moments like where the crowd noise, I was like, ooh, this is loud. Like, and even the Sam Cooke performance, like it sounded like a fucking concert.
Yes.
But yeah, those moments of like walking into the arena for the Rumble in the Jungle where the crowd is like cheering, like I felt like I was there at some point. I was just like, oh my God, this sound is amazing. Like whoever did the sound effects on this, they were nominated for awards. I think they won something, but not an Oscar. They won something for sound. But that to me, I was like, okay, I could see like the appeal of this movie, but I do think it's very narrow in terms of like broadly, as a kid, if I watched this movie, I don't know if it's one of those movies I would have been like, what? That movie's iconic. Like, I gotta rewatch that and really like understand it and stuff, like I would Selena, What Love's Got to Do with It, a Temptations movie, where it just like seeps into your bones, like this person and their story, and you're just like, I gotta like, I like this. I like Ali, or you become like a super fan of Ali from this. And I feel like that would happen to boys probably more so than like, you know, girls watching this and being enthralled enough by it to be like, Daddy, I want a box. Like, and I just think that's the way that the movie appeals. Is just very like, I don't know, testosterone heavy, like in terms of the sporting aspect of it, all the mindset stuff. But I think the sound was amazing. So I can imagine seeing this in theaters and just the Dolby THX of it all probably being amazing.
Yeah.
I did note that one thing I do love about sports movies is sometimes the decisions they make in terms of covering like a event we're used to seeing on TV in a different way. Kind of like when we talked about Love and Basketball, like being inside of their heads, like those moments or those camera switches where it's like, okay, you kind of get their perspective a little bit. And I think, again, they did that well. Let's see. Oh, there's someone we didn't talk about who is an actor in this movie, Leon, because I feel like if Leon's in something, you got to mention him. He played one of the brothers in the Nation of Islam who was talking to the FBI and like helping set up Malcolm X and stuff. And when I saw him, I was like, ooh, I know he's up to no good. Like, so shout out to Leon, legend.
Yeah.
When I noticed it was Jon Voight, I think it was this toupee scene. And I was like, because I did feel like, I was like, he looks like, do I know this guy? Like, he looks familiar. And I couldn't put it with the prosthetic, but I feel like the lifting of the toupee maybe gave me a bit more Jon Voight, and I was like, oh, that's Jon fucking Voight. I wrote that. Like,
it's Jon fucking Voight.
Yeah. I was like, it took me obscenely long to notice that it was Jon Voight. I'm a little curious to see what Muhammad Ali champ burgers would have been like. Reminds me of the Michael Jordan burger that he had with McDonald's and George Foreman and his grill and stuff.
Call me George Foreman because I'm selling everybody grills, baby.
Yeah. And I'm kind of proud that Muhammad Ali never really sold out in that way.
I agree.
Not to shit on the Foreman girl, because everybody had
but
one.
that was like post-retirement. This was when he was like in, like, not in prison, but just like in that waiting period where he was kind of banned from boxing. He was obviously losing money. He's not like winning fights and stuff. So he's just going off of what he had. Bandini had apparently sold his like heavyweight champion belt to either not make money for Muhammad Ali, but just like for himself to fuel his addiction. So there was definitely a temptation to want to start a burger chain or a restaurant chain. And I agree. I'm kind of glad he didn't. Not to say that other people who have were a sellout, but when you make these decisions, you want to make sure that it's not because it's this like desperate cash grab. It's that, but it's like a smart choice on your career.
Yeah.
Plus, with being Muslim, there's like certain limitations and stuff with diet. I mean, burgers are okay, but you can't eat pork. You can't drink alcohol. They're very clear about that. And so, you know, who knows how much he would have been able to like stay within his religious right.
Yeah. Like Bandini said, yeah, he can give up pork, but white women, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Which I just was like, oh, okay. Like, I think that's the point where I was like, fuck him. As that character.
He was slimy, very, very slimy.
Yeah. I do want to go back to, and this could be like maybe one of the last points if there's nothing else, but I do want to go back to Lil Raj again, and he was talking about the scene of him running through the village and how long it was, and how, maybe it could have been shorter, and that it seemed like one of those shots, you get when you're filming, and then, you whittle down in editing, and it wasn't necessary. And I would like to politely disagree from this side of life. And I disagree because one of my notes is, that him running through the village with the people is a beautiful illustration of how, as a Black person, when your success has become so big, it becomes also this hope and inspiration for so many others. And I think that maybe that was lost on Roger a little bit, because I don't know, watching that, I was kind of like, oh, something's going to happen to him. Like, I was waiting for, somebody to, like, Tanya Harding him or something like that. But to just the buildup, I feel like, of that, and then him, like, veering off the path, leaving his handlers behind who are on these, like, little golf carts, like, oh my God, where's he going? Go back.
Yeah,
like,
turn around.
And, he's running, he's following these kids who are chanting his name, Ali Boombaye, like, which means Ali, kill him, which he finds out when he gets off the plane. But the buildup of that, and then the buildup of, like, seeing just, like, the conditions that this country and these people are living in, and despite that, like, how interested they are in him, and to see the drawings of him on the buildings and
the murals.
Yeah. And, to see, like, there was a young man who looked like, I think, like, his arm was disabled or something, but he, like, goes up and he's, like, play boxing with him. To see, like, that impact of who Ali was and his image, I think, is part of maybe the choice and the beauty in picking Michael Mann over Spike Lee, because I did note that I feel like Spike Lee, like, I personally don't mind him being black with Ali and, like, the Islam and the Malcolm X and the militant portion of it, and his choice to not go in the war. But I do wonder if it would have been very African American and not so global. And I think that part in The Village is really what showcases his global impact, And so, I just thought that was a really beautiful part. Do I think it could have been shorter? Maybe, but I think what it conveyed is too important to care how long it is in some ways. And at one point too, like, Ali is running, he's in, like, a sweatshirt, and I don't know if it got dingier as, like, he was running or whatever, but he kind of blended in at one point, and I felt like that was really beautiful too, because it's like he could have easily been one of those people, given history and whatnot, circumstances, like, he wasn't that much different from them in terms of looks, whereas, like, maybe if he was just rolling around in a Rolls Royce and, like, a suit, and he was like, oh yeah, let me stop and say hi, to wave to the people, there's this disconnect, whereas he's just amongst them, and you can tell too, he looks like he gets overwhelmed, and, like, that was a beautiful acting part on Will's behalf of him, like, soaking in all that attention and love and the chanting and stuff. And it builds up too to the fight, and his, like, goal of being heavyweight champion is not so much just about him, it's about all these kids and people who are, rooting for him. And that fight was only televised in Zaire, in the dictator's house. Nobody else got to see that fight on TV in Africa or in that country except for the dictator. I mean, I'm sure that stadium was full, so I'm sure people went to see it. But I can only imagine, having this huge figure come and fight there, and you can't go, maybe you can't go to the fight, maybe you can't watch it, but he's running through your village, and that's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I felt like that was another maybe Roger Ebert is not for the culture moment.
It just kind of went over him.
Yeah. So that's the part of like where I understand where Spike Lee's like, we have to tell our own stories and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think sometimes when we tell our own stories too, we only look, again, our point of view. And that's not always the point of view that is going to do well or appeal to the most people. And that's not to say that that doesn't need to happen. But sometimes broadening that point of view is also beautiful in some way. So my long-winded Ali takes.
But I also like this movie's rated R mostly for the language. And there's some blood when you go through a film about boxing. You get hit in the face, you get hit in the ribs. Like there's gonna be some nasty cuts and blood and stuff. But I appreciated that this film also didn't like grotesquely go into some of the injuries that boxers may sustain during this time. Although I don't know if this is just of who Muhammad Ali was or his personality, but towards the end of the film, some of the conversations and like mannerism stuff, not that you can, it's not so much the Parkinson's as it is the like physical toll that boxing will take on someone's health and brain. After a while, you sustain multiple concussions, and in between each fight, you definitely want to have that time of respite and recovery. And so I think by the end of the movie, even though Ali wins against George Foreman, they're almost 10 years apart at that point. I think Foreman was 25 and Ali was 33. And so, but you can obviously see like the strain that Muhammad Ali is going through to win this fight. So I don't know. I appreciated the cinematic like pieces that the movie wanted to focus on, and
what a beautiful thing it is to be captured by the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I really don't have a snack or cocktail for this movie. I feel like maybe like just a nice like something over the rocks, like at that Sam Cooke concert, like just enjoy a very 1960s cocktail.
Mm-hmm. Mine is, I was thinking about looking up a specialized cocktail for this one, but I remembered that we all know float like a butterfly, sting like a bee is Muhammad Ali's like main catchphrase. And there is a cocktail out there called the Bee's Knees. And so it's a Prohibition era style cocktail. That's going to be mine for this movie. And it's gin, lemon juice, and honey, which is shaken and poured with ice. So it's served chilled in a martini glass, and often served with like a little lemon twist on there. And for snack, I'm going like mixed nuts. I feel like when you I feel like you need something high calorie, high fat, high protein that's going to get you through boxing rounds. Originally I was thinking, oh, maybe like a protein shake or something, but I'm going Bee's Knees and some mixed nuts, some pistachios.
Okay. I will say that I feel like peanut would also fit with this, like shelling.
Yes.
Like peanuts. It reminds me of my Uncle Ernest. So I don't know. Maybe peanut. But yeah, I like a gin cocktail. I was thinking something like gin too. Also something my grandpa and his brothers drank a lot of. So yeah, I'm just going to go with them. Gin and peanuts. That was something I remember about them. So
Do you think this movie holds up to today if it was made in 2022? Like,
I do. I really do think it holds up. I don't know, kind of like this movie, if we need another Ali movie. I know that there is What Happened in Miami, which is directed by, and I think written by, but for sure directed by Regina King. And it features Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali, and Malcolm X and their friendship, and like the night before one of Ali's fights, they all get together and hang out. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Like there's somebody else.
Okay,
all right.
So what was the movie?
Stick that right with Legend of Badger Vance and Leslie Mann, because I cannot get it right. It is One Night in Miami, not What Happens in Miami. And
What Happens in Miami.
One Night in Miami features Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, and Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. And so it's this like one night sort of film, beautifully shot. Surprised it didn't win anything, but
when was that made? I feel like I would love to. I haven't seen it.
Well, 2020. It was on Prime. I think it's still on Prime.
Oh, I remember when this. Okay, yes, I have memory of it. I haven't seen it, but I remember hearing about it. That's on my watch list.
Yes, and I am one of those Black people who are like, oh, I don't really want to watch like anything too deep and, you know, civil rightsy. But I think this movie was kind of fun, interesting way to capture like these different, very important men in some aspects in the civil rights movement. You have obviously Malcolm X at the forefront, but seeing the toll that these events and things were taking on someone like a singer like Sam Cooke.
Yep.
And Jim Brown is also another athlete who spoke up before it was just expected and cool to do so. And, you know, him as well. And Muhammad Ali, and seeing these men hang out with each other and also kind of have fun and dick around and whatnot, but also fiddle with like, you know, these moments in life of like, what are we doing? You know, what's happening? How much do we have a say and contribute to this, and their roles that, you know, people expected of them kind of. So I really enjoyed it. But that's, again, a movie where you have Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. And I brought that up because it's like, it's a movie that features these four men, and they're all important, but like I like stuff like that. That's like, I want to tell this snippet of something cool that happened with these pivotal figures, but we don't have to do a full-blown biopic again on Malcolm X.
It's like a 20-minute window period told over like an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. I like movies like that too, where it talks about a short window of time, but like tells a full story about the friendship and connections between the characters.
And I'm thinking too that bringing up this movie is just that, you know, sometimes with biopics you get like a good enough one, like how I feel about Selena the series. Like the movie is strong enough that we didn't need this series. There was stuff that the movie missed out on because it's a fucking movie. There's only so much time, but like I feel like the performances weren't like somehow elevated, or the production wasn't elevated enough to warrant this series. And I feel like with biopics like Ali, it's like, sure, like I'm curious what a Spike Lee Ali movie would look like, and sure, it could be, again, there are things that this movie didn't do that could be done, but at the same time I feel like, you know, this guy is kind of just synonymous with what we have expected of a biopic of Ali. So why really torture someone to come behind him and try to re-up that in some kind of way? And despite this movie having these similar characters, you know, the actors who played them, I wasn't like, oh, he can't do Ali because he's not Will Smith, or like Will Smith did Ali better, or Denzel did Malcolm X better. Like I actually was impressed by this, but I think that's because it's the beauty of just like this small snippet of time and this like well-rounded cast and like a different aspect of these men that we didn't see before.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the cast.
The cast.
I love Leslie Odom Jr.
Yeah, he's Sam Cooke in One Night in Miami.
Yes. That makes me want to see it even more because, again, I love Sam Cooke, and if Leslie sings in this,
he does.
Fuck! He is a voice that I will listen to and will just weep because it's rare to have a voice that's just so pure without having to riff and go. Now this is just the this is just a different show, so I'm gonna stop. But anyways, God damn. Okay, so okay, cool.
So it holds up. Don't make another Ali.
Holds up. We will watch this later. I will watch this later.
Yeah. That's about it. Thank you everyone for listening to this mini rounds of Ali episode, and to the people who've stuck with us so far, please come back for another episode of the Don King version of Inside the Actor Studio.
If you like us enough, seriously though, to stick around, dust off your gloves, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss Will Smith in our first sequel in the series, baby! We're gonna be doing Here Come the Men in Black Part 2.
That was great. And on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I am your host, Simone. Subscribe to This Blessed Mess. Hey, and if you, even though Lil Raj didn't agree with our opinions this week, but you still think that our merch is kind of cool, subscribe to This Blessed Mess. Find our fucking shit on Redbubble. It's fun, and I promise that the proceeds are going to go to nothing but furthering our craft in the podcast world.
And I'm your host, Bria, and it would be awesome for you to wipe off those bloody boxing fingers, and give us a review. Follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, my favorite, Twitter. Also check out our episodes on YouTube. And this has been another episode of
Bing Bing TKO Roll Call. And